Ava, listening in Indianapolis, Indiana, Sirius XM 131. Hi.
Hi, Hank. My question is, I firmly believe in the Old Testament. I believe that the Bible is true, and I had to come by faith by doing a little bit of research and also by blind faith. I just believe. So sometimes for some of us it's a little bit of both. But I was listening to a program, and I like to listen to these every now and then, but now it's for the purpose of trying to answer questions for other people that are not believers. So my question is, do we have a firm date? And I know we do, because you can find the Internet is not always safe, and it's not always true. But if you search out credible Bible places on the Internet, sometimes you can get a validated answer. But do we have a firm date for when Noah's flood occurred? And then the second part of that is because I was hearing that archaeologists were claiming to find artifacts that they found after the flood, so attempting to disprove the flood. So how can you help me find a resource or a way? How do I answer that question?
Yeah, so two questions. The first question is, no, we don't know the date of the flood. We don't have a firm date for the flood. Remember, if you look at the book of Genesis, you have genealogies. You have 10 on one side of the flood, 10 on the other side of the flood. And the idea for the genealogies is not to give us a chronology, a sequencing of time, but rather there's a symmetry to the genealogies because there's a purpose in the genealogies, just as much a purpose for Moses as there was for Matthew in the 14 that he gives us in his gospel. So we can't establish a date based on the genealogies. That's the point. We don't have a chronology. We do have ample evidence, however, in the second part of your question, for the flood of Noah. And let me say this, with all their failings, corrupted accounts of the flood, and there are many of them, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was the Babylonian account of the flood, or the Epic of Atrahasis, or Eridu Genesis, they all point to something. The similarities in the flood accounts point to a common inheritance. They all derive from the same source, which is to say they all derive from an actual event. And so it stands to reason that as descendants of Noah would have drifted from God, drifted from one another, human embellishments and interpretations would be imported into the actual historical events. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't an actual event. Genesis is written as history. It corresponds to reality. And by the way, you don't have any unpredictable gods cluttering the text as you do in the corrupted flood accounts. And details that can be tested in an age of scientific enlightenment are found to be wholly plausible. And I'll give you one example. In contrast to the cube-shaped Ark of Gilgamesh, modern engineering standards have proven that the Ark of Genesis is ideally suited for floating and stability. But here's the bottom line. Corrupted flood accounts remind us that the reality of a great flood is imprinted on the collective consciousness of virtually every major civilization from the Sumerian epic right on to the present age. And although the corrupted accounts view the waters of the flood through the opaque lens of paganism, they nevertheless lend credence to the occurrence of an actual flood. I've written about this in some detail in a book called The Creation Answer Book, which is also available through the Ministry of the Christian Research Institute. And again, as I close the broadcast, I want to thank everybody that's standing shoulder to shoulder with me in the battle for life and truth. You're making a difference for time and for eternity. So long for now.